This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted, as always, to be joined by the now retired White Rhino, Dave Allen. It's the morning after the night before. Dave, Daniel Dubois versus Joe-Joyce promised a lot of hype going into it, and I feel like it delivered. What did you make to the fight?
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant fight, to be honest. Every fight that's like a big fight, it doesn't matter if it's an exciting fight or if it's a boring fight. When you're watching a great fight live, it's always exciting because you just know it's only one punch. It's boxing, it's one punch away. Even Mayweather Pacquiao, when you watch that, you're on the edge of your seat because you're just thinking, oh no, Pacquiao might land the left hand. When McGregor boxed Mayweather, I didn't think that, but in that fight I did. But the fight was brilliant. I think they're both exceptional heavyweights. Joe was much improved last night, but I think a lot of people just either didn't know or ignored his amateur pedigree. WSB, the Olympic medal. Medaling at every major tournament you can. He's been around the game a long time, and Daniel, the last, as Frampton Hayes said, the last 5 seconds, kind of, he's gonna put doubts in everyone's mind, but more importantly, put doubts in Daniel's mind. But apart from that, I thought Daniel was great as well. For what, 23, fighting a 34-year-old, who I believe is genuine world class, and there wasn't much in it, to be honest. I thought Joe might have been around or two ahead, but there wasn't much in it at all.
Now, before we come and talk about the end of the fight, let's talk about the start of the fight. Joe-Joyce did as a promised, as everybody expected him, really came out in the first round, showed intent, took the middle of the round, and the jab was really effective for Joe-Joyce. Well,
if you would have asked me who was going to win the first round, I'd have bet anything you want. Daniel Dubois was winning that first round. Joe's a notorious slow starter. We say that, but how can he be a notorious slow start when he's winning medals in the Olympics over 3 rounds? You can't be that slow in the first couple of rounds, surely. I sparred Joe hundreds and hundreds of rounds, nearing the 1,000 mark, and his jab looks. I used to watch him there and think. I remember the first time I sparred him. I watched him. I thought this fella's horrific. I got in there with him. The physical strength. His heavy hands, all the rest of it. But his jab, he just kind of drops it on your face. It's really weird. Like he throws it. Like he doesn't turn his knuckle over. He throws it weirdly, but it just lands all the time. He's got a great jab in there. I thought the key to the fight was who would win the battle of the jabs. And Dubois, for me, I thought Dubois had one of the best jabs in heavyweight boxing. But Joe proved, it's not all about the eye test, because once you're in there, it's a different kettle of fish. And like you said to me earlier, he looked fucking massive, Joe-Joyce. Because Dubois is a huge man, and Joe, it looked like, like a middleweight in there with like heavyweight. That looked the size difference. It was crazy.
Now, obviously, Joe-Joyce got his jab off and enjoyed a great deal of success early in the fight, but it wasn't without success for Daniel Dubois. We know about how much of a big puncher he is. We were told about Joe-Joyce. We know Joe-Joyce's chin going into the fight, but he took some absolute bombs from Daniel Dubois.
What I would say is, from my little experience I've got sparring with Daniel, his jabs are exceptional. He's not a massive puncher with the right hand or the left hook, but his jab is phenomenal. And I think the fight was won when Joe took the jab away from him. That was it. The job was, I wouldn't say all done, because he obviously can still punch, but when Joe won the battle of the jabs, it was downhill from there for Daniel, I thought. But he did have success. Rounds 2, 3, and 4, it looked like Daniel was coming on, but you always knew Joe was going to finish strong. And I thought Daniel put a hell of a lot into round 2 and I think round 6, put loads into it. And Joe's probably the toughest man in British boxing at the minute. So I think, I don't want to say they got the game plan wrong, because I don't want to slate anybody and talk about stuff like that. But for me, you don't beat Joe-Joyce by doing what Daniel did last night. I think if the box again in 12 months' time with a different kind of game plan, I think you'd see a different result.
Let's talk about the end of the fight. Obviously, it's probably the big talking point from the fight. Daniel Dubois took a knee on the receiving end of a jab and kind of saw the count out. David Haye, Carl Frampton, two people who you know well, were kind of very matter-of-factly about how they feel the fight ended. What did you make of Daniel Dubois' end to the fight?
Well, Dubois quit, but I've quit before, and so I understand. I see lots of people saying, "Oh, Dubois quit. He's going nowhere. He'll never go anywhere now. He's chucked it in." When his eye was closed, like the best example I can use is myself because I was there. I know how I felt when I was boxing Price, and I knew after around 2 or 3, when I got on top of the head, and I still had the concussions on my spine. I didn't know that at the time, but I knew something was badly wrong. And I stuck in there for 10 rounds. Same as Daniel, I stuck in there. Then when I got the eye damage, I was struggling to see. There comes a point in a fight where no matter how tough you think you are, and Daniel is super tough, it comes a point where, it's human nature. For every one Arturo Gatti, there's around 7 billion other people in the world that know when to stop, And Daniel falls into that category. He's human, He's a baby. He's 23 years old, He did quit, but he had the fight be out of him, And I got a lot of stick for saying that Joshua quit in the Ruiz fight, and he did. But that's not a dig at anybody. I've been there. I know what it's like. I quit myself against Price. I've also been with Bracamonte and Yoka and never put it in. I'm a firm believer now, through experience, as human beings have limits, and you don't go past them. You can't go past them. Some have got limits. That's the pass others, but everyone's got a limit. And Joe took Daniel to his last night. There's no shame in what he did, but it's a big mental barrier now moving forward.
You mentioned that big mental barrier going forward, which I think is probably the biggest obstacle, not the fact that he had the eye injury, but the psychological damage of ending the fight in that way at that time in Daniel's career. It's going to be difficult for him to come back from, certainly in the immediate future.
Well, it's something that I've never got over after the Price fight. I boxed once after the Price fight, and I was going to box again, but my confidence was shot, to be honest. And that was the reason I said to him, I'm packing up. I said, my confidence is gone, mate. All gone. And he's only 23, he's only a baby, and I think he's got all the tools to be a world heavyweight champion. But this is going to be huge to get over, Taking the knee in the middle of the ring like that, bowing down and essentially jacking it, like I just said, with reason, with good reason, as a human being, I say, with good reason, good on you, mate. Yeah, you knew your limits. But as a boxer and as talking just purely boxing, it's definitely hard to come back from. And I hope he's all right this morning, because I know he'll be he'll be thinking, I can't believe he'll be in total shock that he did what he did. When I pulled out the corner of the Price, I watched it back, and it broke my heart, to be honest, because when you're a fighter and that, it breaks your heart. And I was crying in the ambulance. I thought I'd been knocked out. I was crying at the thing with Darren because I pulled out in the corner. So I just felt like it looks like you have a great family around him, and I hope they are, because I know this morning for a 23-year-old, it's going to be a lot to take in, not only his first defeat, but in the manner it's happened.
What next for Joe Joyce? I mean, he was a massive underdog, really, or a sizable underdog going into this fight, and he won, and not only won, but won in impressive fashion. Got to be a big fight next for Big Jugger.
I thought he improved last night. He looked great. He looked really good. His jab was fantastic. He didn't look as stiff as he has before. He looked more mobile. He was super patient. He wasn't throwing that right hand until at least 6-7 rounds. And he did a job. He did a good job. He looked what he is, a very experienced, good, very, very good man. And what's next? I don't like the Usyk fight for him. But I think whatever comes up for Joe, if it's a Usyk or Joshua, Fury, whatever comes up at 34 years of age, you've got to take it. And I wouldn't write him off against anybody in the world, because he's so tough and durable and strong, and he can punch. But the likes of Usyk, stylistically, and Fury, I've seen Joe spar Joshua for years and years. Them three fighters, I wouldn't tip him to win. But anyone else in the world, you give him a massive chance against. I'd love to see him box Derek Chisora. I don't think that's going to be a possibility, but that's the fight for me. I think that'd be a tremendous fight.
What about Daniel Dubois? Obviously, there's talk about a rematch. Frank Warren mentioned it last night. Do you think that's advisable? If not, what do you think Daniel should do next?
He's 23 years of age, look back, like Joe Joyce had not even boxed amateur at 23 years old. Anthony Joshua, I think, was still boxing amateur. I think he was 2008. Well, he probably just won his first ABA title. At 23, I was 6'0" 22 stone. Just sat at home. So if you look at all the heavyweights in the top 10 in Britain right now and all the champions from years gone by, Mike Tyson aside, no one at that kind of age. He's an heavyweight. I think he's 3 or 4 years from his physical peak. There's so much to work on with him as a boxer. He's got a great jab. His feet are good, but everything else isn't where it needs to be if you want to go where he wants to go. Which is a world heavyweight champion. He's got so much to work on. I'm not a big believer in changing trainers every 2 minutes, but maybe he needs something different. I don't know, but I really enjoyed watching him in the build to this fight because he looked like he'd really come out of himself. His personality was showing through, and I was becoming a bit of a fan. Well, I am still a fan. I don't care if he gets beat or not, but I'm not sure. He has to. Matchmaking's so hard. It's like Anthony Yarde when he boxed Kovalev. You can't go from where he was fighting to Kovalev and expect to win. You can't expect to go from Fujimoto and fighters like that and then think you're going to beat Joe Joyce. It doesn't work like that. In the end, I was thinking Dubois would win. You buy into it. He looks great. He passes the eye test, but boxing, you've got to be matched really well, and I think the next 12, 18 months of Dubois' career is going to be so important now, matching him correctly, because you got to bring him back. You can't push him too fast, but at the same time, if you ever want to get him good enough to beat Joe Joyce and beyond, you've got to have the right fighters to bridge that gap. You've got to bridge the gap from Fujimoto to Joyce. You can't just go straight from that kind of opponents. And I can't even remember who he boxed last time. Joe boxed Wallace and Dubois boxed the Belgian cruiserweight. Yeah, you can't go from a cruiserweight to Joe Joyce, because you're passing the eye test, because you're doing well in sparring. You can't do it. So, and Sam Jones, Sam Jones gets a lot of stick. But, putting him with the Bryant Jennings, what's Leroy Thomas in his third fight, Well, Leroy Thomas not a world bit, but for your third fight, Ian Lewis on your debut was unbelievable. David A did a great job from at the start. Sam Jones did a great job. They've matched him fantastically well, and I watched the build-up, and Sam Jones was saying, you've not had the fight, you've not had the middle fight, you've not had the Bryant Jennings, and he was spot on.
Okay, Dave, before I let you go, the other fight that was on last night, I know you stayed up to watch it. I tapped out, I think, slightly before the fight. Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones, battle to a draw in their exhibition. What did you make of the spectacle?
Well, I watched the whole show, to be honest, and there was a few good fights on. The people I've to be honest, I've never heard of them. They're Americans, I think, and there was some good fights on. The YouTuber thing was a farce. Badu Jack. The top 3 fights on the was Badu Jack beating up a circuit fighter, I think they call him in America, a Chris Lovejoy. It was Badu Jack against a super light heavyweight Chris Lovejoy, to be honest. Unbeaten record, dog shit. And that's not being disrespectful. It is what it is. He was pretty poor. It was hard as nails, though. It was really hard. It was horrific watching, to be honest. Then you've got Jake Paul, who looks like he'd be an half-decent amateur around the club shows, you know what I mean? Knocking out some fella that's never been punched before, because every time he got 8 jumps on the floor, that was a farce. And the main event, as great as it was to see Mike Tyson looking really well. And one thing I was thinking was, Roy Jones is a legend, one of the greatest fighters, pound for pound of all time. He was an afterthought. No one really cared about Roy Jones at all in this whole thing. Mike Tyson must be, and I knew this from first-hand experience when I said I beat him, must be one of the most loved athletes, most loved personalities of all time, But for boxing, I didn't enjoy it. As a spectacle, I didn't enjoy watching Snoop Dogg at 5:15 before. Snoop, come on. I'm tired. Come on, get off me telly. But, I watched 5 rounds and I thought, you know what, I'd rather go on YouTube, watch Tyson Burbick and Jones Tony, because this is not great.
Well, bear that in mind when people offer you the chance to come out of retirement.
You know what? No. I got excited last week. I texted anything, didn't he? Give me that money for that bungalow. I'll fight Babbage in 2 weeks. But, Rob, And then I texted him the next day. I said, "Love me." I said, "I'm really sorry. I got carried away. I wanted to fight him. I wanted with bungalow. Come on, what's going on? Get me a job."
All right, Dave Allen, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. I'll leave you to it. I'll be in touch. As always, real pleasure. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Rob. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Dave.